So in this video, I'm going to talk about passive voice. Passive voice is used usually when you do a science paper. And so in the passive voice, the object of an active verb becomes the subject of the passive verb. The boy A becomes the subject of the passive verb. So here you would have, so in passive verb, you would have the boy was helped by Mary. So the boy is receiving the action of being helped by Mary. Whereas active voice, the subject is doing the action, and in passive voice, the subject is receiving the action. And so that is the basic difference between passive voice and active voice. And in passive voice, you have a be verb plus the past participle. So the be verb was plus the past participle helped. So that is how you form the passive voice. So here you have Mary helps the boy, that's active voice. So here Mary is doing this, is the subject doing the action of helping the boy. And then passive voice, the boy is helped by Mary. And here the subject is receiving the action of being helped by Mary. Mary is helping, Mary has helped the boy. The boy has been helped by Mary. So Mary was helping the boy was helped by Mary. Mary has helped the boy has been helped by Mary. Mary will help the boy will be helped by Mary. Mary is going to help the boy is going to be helped by Mary. Mary will have helped the boy will have been helped by Mary. So on this side, all of these are all passive voice because the subject is receiving the action of being helped by Mary. And in all of these passive voice, you have the be verb plus the past participle. And so when do we use the passive voice? The passive voice is used when we write scientific papers and when whoever did the active, like the action, is not important. So that's when you use passive voice. But for most of your writing, like for your essays, you're going to be using active voice because when you use active voice, your sentences sound more dynamic because the subject is the one doing the action. So here's some more examples of how to form passive voice. So this is active voice where the subject is doing the action. Tom is opening the door. So Tom is the subject doing the action of opening the door. Now if you want to transform this sentence, which is present progressive, into passive voice, then you would say the door is being opened by Tom. Here you have it, active voice in the present perfect. Tom has opened the door. Then you would say the door has been opened by Tom. Tom opened the door. The door was opened by Tom. Tom was opening the door. The door was being opened by Tom. Tom had opened the door. The door had been opened by Tom. Tom will open the door. The door will be opened by Tom. Tom is going to open the door. The door is going to be opened by Tom. So in all of these passive voice, the subject is receiving the action of being opened by Tom. Tom will have opened the door. The door will have been opened by Tom. Is Tom opening the door? Is the door being opened by Tom? Did Tom open the door? Was the door opened by Tom? Has Tom opened the door? Has the door been opened by Tom? So that's how you form the passive voice in all the different tenses. And so using the passive voice, rice is grown in India. Our house was built in 1980. The olive oil was imported from Crete. So usually the passive is used without a by phrase. The passive is most frequently used when it is not known or not important to know exactly who performs the action. Rice is grown in India by people, by farmers, by someone. It is not important who grew the rice in India. So this illustrates a common usage of the passive voice. Our house was built in 1980. The olive oil was imported from Creek. Life on the Mississippi was written by Mark Twain. So the by phrase is included only if it is important to know who performed the action. So in that sentence, whereby by Mark Twain is important information because we want to know who wrote the book Life on the Mississippi. So Life on the Mississippi was written by Mark Twain. My aunt made this ring. This is active voice. So if the speaker knows who performs an action, usually the active voice is used. The rug was made by my aunt. The rug was made by my mother. Sometimes, even when the speaker knows who performs the action, she chooses to use the passive voice because she wants to focus attention on the subject of the sentence. So the focus of attention is on the two rings. So the focus of attention is on the two rugs. So this rug was made by my aunt. That rug was made by my mother. Indirect objects as passive voices. So someone gave Mrs. Lee, indirect object, an award. Mrs. Lee was given an award. Someone gave an award, direct object, to Mrs. Lee. An award was given to Mrs. Lee. And so either the indirect object or a direct object may become the subject of a passive voice. Notice, when the direct object becomes the subject to, is usually kept in front of the direct object. So whenever you have an indirect object, that means it does not come directly after the verb. Direct object is an object that comes directly after the verb. And so you can have both in a passive voice. So passive voice can also be formed with modals. So Tom will be invited to the picnic. The window can't be opened. The children should be taught to respect their elders. May I be excused from class? This book had better be returned to the library before Friday. This letter ought to be sent before June 1st. Mary has to be told about our change in plans. Fred is supposed to be told about this meeting. The letter should have been sent last week. So the past passive form with modals. The house must have been built over 200 years ago. Jack ought to have been invited to the party. So here's some more examples. The meat must be kept in a refrigerator or it will spoil. You must keep meat in a refrigerator or it will spoil. So here you are going to tell me whether something is active voice or passive voice. A state of passive. The state of passive means that we don't use, so in a state of passive, you have here, you're describing the noun. So the door is old. So the adjective old describes the noun door. The door is green describes the door, and the door is locked describes the noun door. So in A and B, old and green are adjectives. They describe the door. They describe locked is a past participle, and it is used as an adjective. It describes the door. So when we use adjectives, then you have the be verb. When you have subject, be verb, and an adjective, that's known as a state of passive because you have the be verb plus a past participle. Whenever you have a be verb plus a past participle, that makes it a passive voice. And so when you say the door is old, that's the same thing as saying the old door. The door is green, the green door. The door is locked, the locked door. And so here, when the passive voice is used to describe an existing situation or state, it is called the state of passive. In the state of passive, no action is taking place. The action happened earlier. There is no by phrase. The past participle functions as an adjective. So here you would say, I locked the door 5 minutes ago. The door was locked by me 5 minutes ago. Now the door is locked. And so here, here you have a bunch of, Anne broke the window yesterday. This is an active voice because Anne is doing the action of breaking the window. Here you have passive voice. The window was broken by Anne. And here you have be verb plus past participle, and the window is receiving the action of being broken by Anne. Now you have a state of passive. Now the window is broken. And so here you have a state of passive because it has no by Anne. Okay, so that's how you know that it's a state of passive. I am interested in Chinese art. He is satisfied with his job. Anne is married to Alex. So prepositions other than by can follow the state of passive verb. I don't know where I am. I am lost. I can't find my phone. It is gone. I am finished with my work. I am done with my work. So M through G or M through P are examples of idiomatic usage of passive form in common everyday English. These sentences have no equivalent active sentences. In other words, no equivalent active voice. So here you have some common stative, passive. You have some common stative passive verbs and prepositions. Be, I am accustomed to. Be acquainted with. Be addicted to. Be annoyed with. Be associated with. Be bored with. Be cluttered with. So this room is cluttered with garbage. Composed of. Be concerned about. Be connected to. Be coordinated with. Be declared to. Be dedicated to. Be devoted to. Be divorced from. Be dressed as. Be gone from. Okay, so all of these common stative verbs plus prepositions. I'm interested in Greek culture. He's worried about losing his job. So many stative passive verbs are followed by prepositions other than by. So instead of having by at the end of your passive voice, you can also have other prepositions at the end of your passive voice. So here, how do you know which prepositions to use? Well, that you just have to memorize because there's no special trick. See, I'm not acquainted with that man. Mark Twain is known for his stories. A person who is addicted to drugs needs professional help. Jack is married to Joan. Could I please have the dictionary when you are finished with it? I'll never make it. I'm still dressed in my pajamas. My car is equipped with air conditioning and a sunroof. The school children were exposed to the measles. So you have to just know which preposition goes with which common stative verb. The passive with get plus an adjective. I'm getting hungry. You shouldn't eat so much, you'll get fat. I stopped working because I get sleepy. I stopped working because I get tired. They are getting married next month. I got worried because he was 2 hours late. Get may be followed by certain adjectives. Get gives the idea of change, the idea of becoming, beginning to be, or growing to be. I'm getting hungry. I wasn't hungry before, but now I'm beginning to be hungry. Get may also be followed by a past participle. The The past participle functions as an adjective. It describes the subject. The passive with get is common in spoken English, but is often not appropriate in formal writing. So I get angry, I get anxious, I get bald, I get better, I get busy, I get chilly, I get cold, I get dizzy, I get empty, I get fat, good, heavy, so hungry, light-headed, I get mad, I get nervous, I get old, I get rich, I get sleepy, I get thirsty. So we use get plus the adjective, and that is known as a stative passive. And it's used mainly in oral and casual English when you talk to your friends and family, but get is not used in formal English. If you want to write in formal English, you would say, I become angry, I become anxious, I become bald, I become hungry. So we use become if we're going to be writing, and we use get if we're going to be talking. So that's the difference between formal English and casual English with stative passives. Participial adjectives. So here you have the present participle serves as an adjective with an active meaning. The noun it modifies performs an action. The noun problem does something. It confuses. Thus, it is described as a confusing problem. The past participle serves as an adjective with a passive meaning. The students are confused by something. Thus, they are described as confused students. So, it is a confusing problem. They are confused students. Usually, if you're talking about a thing with the present participle, if you're talking about a thing, we use ing, and if we're talking about a person, we use ed. So here you have it is a confusing problem, so that's a thing, so we use the ing form of the participial, present participle, and then here we use the when it's a person, we use the ed form of the present participle. It is an amusing story. They are amused children. So we could try it again. So every time we have people, we use ed, and every time you have a thing, we use ing. So the class bores the students. So here you have a thing. It is a boring class. Then you have people. We use ed. They are bored students. So it is an. Do we use excited or exciting? So because it's a thing, we say it is an exciting game. They are. Do we say exciting or excited? And because we have people, we say excited. They are excited people. The news surprised the team. It was surprising news. The man was surprised by the news. He was a surprised man. The child was frightened by the strange sound. The frightened child sought comfort from her father. The strange noise frightened the child. It was a frightening sound. The work exhausted the men. It was exhausting work. The men were exhausted. The exhausted men sat down to rest under the shade of a tree. So every time you have a person, you use ed, and every time you have a thing, you use ing, boring, instead of bored. So we don't say it is a bored class, and we don't say they are boring students. We can't mix and match. So always when you have a thing, you use ing, and when you have when you have people, you use ed. So that's how you do participial adjectives in passive voice. Noun clauses. So now that I'm on the next chapter, I will stop this video, and in my next video, I will go over chapter 12, what are noun clauses.